Hi there, I'm Chris Devine and this is Six String World. A while back, it seemed like a ton of YouTube videos that came up in my feed all had the same topic. And it happened in a very short space of time. And it was a lot of videos about Trainwreck amps. 5 Watt World did a comprehensive short story on them. And later on, Pete Thorne did a demo of one that I did catch. And I was intrigued with what I learned and with what I heard. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon will let you know when I put up a new video. And if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button. And if you want to share it, well, there's a button for that as well. Here's the hyper short story. Trainwreck Amps was started by Ken Fisher in New Jersey, and he made some very cool British flavored handmade tube amps. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2006, and now these amps are really sought after, kind of like the way Dumble amps are sought after. They're not Dumble flavored though, but they are pretty much rare, if not rarer than the typical Dumble amps. Now, Ken did share some of his thoughts and designs with some other amp makers before he passed on. Comet amps as well as Dr. Z amps. And Ken Fisher's family has also authorized one of Ken's former associates to continue making Trainwreck amps as well. Now, these amps are a lot more available than the original Trainwrecks, but they are still a bit pricey for somebody like myself. But the Dr. Z Z-Rec Junior amp was on my radar as a possible option for myself. It clocks in at 15 watts and is about $2,300-ish as a 1x12 combo. I'm usually not one to spend that much on an amp these days, but I was along the lines thinking this could be my final tube amp that I buy, or at least the last tube amp I buy for a very long time. And finding a small wattage combo that's really well made and that has all the bells and whistles, that's kind of hard to find. And the Z-Rec Junior seems to fit that slot very easily. But then the tube crisis of 2022 kicked in and I reevaluated my need for a high-end tube amp for the moment. But I still wanted to explore that Trainwreck sound that I had heard. It's kind of like a hybrid of British amp designs. They were noted for being very hard to explain their tone very easily. It's kind of like part Vox in a way, part Marshall in another way. And it's no wonder that, there are a lot of amp in the box pedals for typical amps. But finding an amp in the box pedal for a Trainwreck, that's a very slim road. And Ethos Pedals does make one, which seemed very cool and has plenty of options for tonal adjustments. However, the price is a little bit high for even just dipping my toes in there. And it was also kind of hard to find one on the used market. So I arrived at a very inexpensive option, the Vertex T-drive. And I scored this pedal on reverb.com for $100. To be clear, this video isn't sponsored by Vertex or reverb.com in any way. I have had some experience with Vertex pedals. I have had their dynamic distortion for quite a while now, and I do like that pedal. It's very versatile. So I had faith in this pedal being pretty good based on that track record. The T-drive had been out for a while, but it didn't really get a lot of attention for some reason. In fact, Vertex even did a video saying they kind of thought it was a bit of a flop. But for a drive pedal that only has a level and distortion control option, well, it's kind of like driving without a seatbelt for me. I like the idea of having some tone adjustment on my pedals, but seeing as though a lot of classic pedals like the Distortion Plus or the DoD 250, well, they don't have them. And so again, I decided to take this leap of faith. So when I got it, I put it on my board and I ended up setting the level pretty high to get unity gain. And I usually have the drive at about 9 o'clock and it sounds very good. In the video that you heard, the song you heard in the beginning, I have it a little bit higher than I normally would because I'm using a single coil guitar. I have it at about noon. And I really enjoyed the way it sounded with humbuckers, and I also really like the way it sounds with single coils. And just knowing that it's a small adjustment to go between a humbucker or a single coil, it's nice to know that it's very easily to dial that in for a nice pedal like this. Now, usually though, however, anything afternoon drive-wise on this pedal is almost a bit much. It does saturate a little bit, and for what I do, that's basically, I don't need to go further past this. It also, after the noon setting, it kind of gets a little darker here and there, so it did flavor well with the single coils on this PRS SE Silver Sky, but on humbuckers it would probably get a little dark, maybe even a little muffly, and might have to adjust the EQ on my amp to really kind of find the sweet spot of how this pedal interacts with my amp. So it definitely gets a little darker, but that's not a bad thing. Knowing that that's what it does, you can kind of work with it, and that really makes sense. I have really liked how this came out on my pedal board. The rhythm tone that I get out of it, I really like. Lead wise, there's plenty of sustain and character that responds to my picking attack, and just volume control as well too is very dynamic. You roll your volume knob back, it feels a little bit like an amp, which is what a lot of players, when they get a pedal, they want it to sound a bit like an amp. They also want it to react like an amp, and it kind of has that quality to it. Now, it also happens to have a bit of the flavor that I like out of a Vox amp. You roll back the volume, you still get some top-end chime on it, especially in the lower gain settings. I really kind of like that. But it's still far more Marshall-ish when you get into mid-range. And like I said, the low end, it doesn't really get flabby on the low end when you're playing-wise, if you're really boosting if you're playing on the lower frequencies, lower registers, especially, like I said, anything below the noon setting, but it does get a little dark as you go further up. So you may want to, again, play with that, but it doesn't get tubby in just those lower gain settings either. So that's really important that it kind of stays in its lane in that area, and that works really well for me. I also will have to tell you that it pairs very nicely with my EP booster as well. So that's really nice to know that it will actually work with other pedals nicely. So with all these awesome qualities of this pedal, and you've heard it on the track, and it sounds great. But the question kind of now goes to, well, why wasn't this more popular? And well, I have a few thoughts. Now, one, it's the color. Now, whatever you say about it's all about the music and what things sound like and looks don't matter. Now, sometimes it does. Aesthetics do come into play. Even when it comes to pedals, I'll be honest, the brown paint job may harken back to the woodwork on the original Trainwreck amps, but the 1970s station wagon brown color palette, it's not very sexy. There were some limited edition versions in Shoreline Gold. I haven't seen any of those out in the wild, but I have seen photos of them. I think that would have been a better color to stick with personally. The second thing is the tone control situation. I'll say this. At this point, I don't miss a tone control on this pedal. Even when you start going up higher into the gain, where it would have been nice to just be able to boost a little more treble or even cut the bass as that gain goes up. It's not really something that I'm fighting. It's more something that I'm working with. And this really does interact well with an amp's EQ setting. So it's kind of like it works with your amp, not against it. And so I like that aspect of it. There are, like I said, there's a lot of classic two-knob overdrive units and fuzz pedals, and everyone lusts over those. It doesn't matter if they're vintage versions or modern boutique. Sometimes you don't need a tone knob, and I've kind of learned that through this pedal. So it could just be something that guitar players just can't get past, and I understand that. So some sort of tone control would be a nice upgrade if they did a version 2.0. That being said, Vertex did a video outlining this failure and their thoughts on this, and I figured I'd grab one of these pedals before they went out of production, because usually when that happens, it will become a forgotten or an overlooked classic. And, you know, after that, it's always hard to find stuff like that for a reasonable price. So, you know, I figured it was a good time to grab one of those. So yeah, if Vertex did a version 2.0, I'd definitely, you know, change the color scheme. Maybe because it's kind of British flavored. Maybe British racing green's a great color, or maybe some sort of Union Jack motif. A tone control would also be great. Maybe not a tone control, maybe like a pass filter where you have either the highs or lows get cut, or maybe make it selectable with a three-way switch where you have a high pass or a low pass or no filter at all, and just having it just like the version 1. So those could be options. Who knows? But, you know, this is $100 pedal, and, you know, it does the trick. It sounds fantastic. It's not a direct replacement for a handmade 5-figure tube amp like the original Trainwrecks, or even one of the cheaper options that I did mention. But this turned out to be a really sweet sounding drive, and it doesn't quite give a specific amp in the box flavor, but it's the British amp flavors and tones that I like, and so far it's working for me. Now, I didn't think I would find a pedal to replace my Noble's ODR1 Mini, but this is really hard to beat, especially for what it cost me. So I suggest getting one while you can before the fear of missing out on a pedal kicks in. I think it's something well worth checking out. And like I said, comparing it to my ODR1 Mini, I usually had that pedal, the drive, pinned right to the completely topped out. And I usually had the level set at noon, and then the tone usually had it right in the middle. So at this pedal, at like I said, the 9 o'clock setting, I'm at about the same gain stage as I would with the ODR1 Mini at fully maxed out. So this is kind of where I can still get a little bit more drive on top of that if I really need it. So it's been worthwhile for me to kind of give up that spot on my pedal board for this one. But anyways, how about you guys? Have you gone down the Trainwreck rabbit hole like I did? Or maybe did you have another amp style pedal that, you know, you wanted the amp so hard to get, but you found a pedal that could do that? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And also, if you know of some other Trainwreck like drive pedal that I have missed or haven't heard of, or maybe we all haven't heard of it, but let us know, especially in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. I'll also put in the area below the links to Pete Thorne's video as well as the 5-Watt World video to really whet your appetite on that one, so you can enjoy what I've enjoyed by getting into this new pedal. So it's very cool. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.